Well, good morning, good day, good evening, good night, wherever you dial in. Appreciate you dialing in for another one of our sessions. We are looking at, hold on a minute, we're looking at session 8, grace. Now we're looking at understanding chapter 20. It's a continuation from chapter 19. Jesus is giving a parable, and that's what we're going to be going through, right? We're going to be looking at a lot of this stuff, and what he's looking at is that he's trying to Jesus is trying to transition them from thinking in earthly terms to more spiritual terms. And by doing that, you're looking at parables that have an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And so that's what we're in the process of doing here. So we'll get right into it. So the question here is, why do you think we perceive life as being continually unfair? Why do we perceive life to be continually unfair? Okay, well, let's start with the simple. Okay, the simple part of that, in my opinion, is when you turn on the news, what do you hear? You hear all kinds of bad stuff. You hear all the negative stuff. You hear all the death and destruction in our world, the brokenness, the sin. We hardly ever hear the good news, right? The good news is so good and rewarding that we don't hear enough of it. So that's why it's good, right? So I think that's it. And another reason why we think it's continually unfair is because the toil that we have to do. We have to work for a living. We have to work for our stuff. We have to do this, that, and the other. And we can see a lot of perceived unfairness around us. But again, it comes down to the world that we're living in. We're living in a fallen, broken world. And we find our identity in Jesus Christ. We find our identity at the cross. And it's not that we are set aside, that we go into the world. We're set aside in regards to salvation. We're set aside in regards to God's family and being God's children. However, God wants us to continue to work in this world to save others. The light that he gives us and provides us is for everyone to see. It's very important for that. So as far as looking at the world being perceived as continually unfair, yeah, I can see where we can say it's all around us. The brokenness is all around us. And sometimes that can get to us, and it can be disheartening at times. It really does. All right, so we're going to get straight into this. We're looking at Matthew chapter 21 through 7, workers hired. And Jesus, of course, he's continuing on. So he continues on when he says for. So, for the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the workers on for one denarius, he sent them into his vineyard for the day. Then he went out about 9 in the morning. He saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He said to them, "You also go into my vineyard, and I will give you whatever is right." And so off they went. About noon and about 3, he went out again and did the same thing. Then about 5, he went and found others standing around and said to them, "Why have you been standing here all day doing nothing?" "Because no one hired us," they said to him. You also go into my vineyard," he told them. Okay. All right. So looking at this, workers hired on a symbolic level, obviously the owner is God, and the vineyards represent Israel, right? So let's not forget that. And of course, the setting in the story is set during the harvest time. Being that at this point in time, the nation is more of an agricultural basis society. So the seasons are very important, and when he talks to them on this level, is to a point that they understand what he's talking about. So here, so we look at this. So God, being the owner, goes in and he's looking for workers to work in his vineyard. And so he goes to them, and at different parts during the day, he goes and finds workers. Now, obviously, depending on how many workers you have, depends on the abundance of your field. So this owner has no hesitation in bringing in people at various times of the day. That just goes to show you that the harvest is plentiful, right? So the owner, God, is saying, "I need all the workers I can get." So that's what we're looking at here. And he's telling them, you got some people that had no excuse. Hey, no one's going to hire us. Well, even at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the owner is saying, you also go into my vineyard. Wow, So looking at this, the first workers, he tells them after agreeing to workers on one denarius. So that's a lot back then, right? So they're going in. Now, if you look at the rest of the times, you'll see that, what is being said here. He said, you also go to my vineyard and I'll give you whatever is right. And so off they went. So there's no negotiation of money. So they go in, they're doing their work. And so that's what's going on here. Now, we would probably think, if someone's going in the afternoon as opposed to someone in the morning, obviously they would get less, and that's to be expected, right? But that's not where we're headed. Okay, so we're going to get into this here in just a second. Question: what is the significance of the detail about the landowner and the workers agreeing on the amount of pay? Okay, the significance is real simple. When you look at this, fair wages for fair work, it comes to mind. But when we look at this, it's one of those situations where we can look at God being the owner and we can look at the land of Israel being the vineyard. The pay is more along the lines of not necessarily gold or silver in a material sense, but more of a reaping of a reward in a heavenly sense. Okay. So in this case, the work that we do, what do we get? We store our treasures in heaven, which is what Jesus said that we should do. We should not have to remember the conversation last week he had with the young man who had a lot of possessions. He told him to sell everything, right? And build your treasures in heaven, because that's where it needs to be. And of course, the young man was greatly distressed by this. And so we can take and look at the same situation here in regards to that. So very important stuff. All right, so second part, equally paid. Matthew 28 through 12. When evening came, the owner of the vineyard told his foreman, call the workers and give them their pay, starting with the last and ending with the first. So what he's saying here is we're going to bring the people in, we're going to bring the workers in, and the people that I hired last, the people that came in at 5 o'clock, we're going to take care of them, and then we're going to take care of the 3 o'clock, we're going to take care of the noon, and then the morning people, right? So that is the order that you would think that some people would put the people that were there all day working, he'd put them in the front of the line and work their way back, right? Again, we're thinking, we got to switch our thinking on that. When those who were hired about 5 came, they received 1 denarius. So when the first ones came, they assumed they would get more, but they also received a denarius each. When they received it, they began to complain to the landowner. These last men put in 1 hour, and you made them equal to us who bore the burden of the day's work and in the burning heat. So, all right, I'll be honest with you. From a physical sense and a worldly sense, if I had to work all day and someone that came in at 5 o'clock got the same amount of money as I did, yeah, I wouldn't be happy. So I kind of understand from a physical sense, from an earthly sense, where there's some justification to the morning people having a gripe, right? So, but that's, looking at this, we got to keep in mind that the owner, whatever the situation is, the owner made the deal with these people separately, okay? Now, if the owner came to me and I negotiated for 1 denarius, then that's what it is, right? It wasn't conditional on condition of someone else. Now, if I would have said one, let's say, just in modern times, if I say I'll do the work for, $15 an hour, that's different, because then every hour that I work, I'm getting $15. So a person starts at 5 o'clock, it's not going to be the same as a person starting in the morning time at 9 p.m. But back then, it wasn't one of these things where we had hourly work, right? You agreed upon wages for a day's work. And so that's what we're looking at here. So the owner, being God, called the foreman, called these workers in at the end of the day when the evening came to pay them out. Now, we're looking at the fact that the people that start at 5 o'clock, So they probably did what, an hour, 2 hour, 3 hours at the most of work, and they got paid the same as the people that have been out there all day in the heat. So there is some griping going on here for sure. They considered equal treatment to be unequal is the thing. So they got equal wages, but they thought this was unequal because they were here. And of course, the morning crew was resentful of the people who were who came in late later on, and so they feel that they bore the suffering working all day in the heat, and they had a reason to complain. So I think that that's very important there. So, question: how do people today question God's fairness? How do some view his nature or view his just nature? So, how do people today question God's fairness? I think overall, people, when people talk about God in the absence of mentioning Jesus, a lot of times I just dismiss their argument. Um, to know God is to know Jesus, right? And so, looking at God's character, a lot of times people today question if it's so selfish reasons. My God, why are you doing this? Why is this happening to me, right? As opposed to someone else, as opposed to anybody at all. So I think a lot of people uh, selfishly look at reasons for things happening to them because they feel that they don't deserve it, right? And sometimes people make their own problems. Sometimes they make their own mistakes. And when they make those mistakes, they're stuck in the bed that they made, right? And some people make their own graves, in which case, they have themselves to blame for it. But again, it's easier to blame God than it is to blame or take on the responsibility of blame, in my opinion. So you may have a different opinion of that, and you may want to bring that someday, and we can talk about that, right? So it's a good study question there. All right, so last part here, we'll look at this. Grace exemplified, Matthew 20:13-16. He replied to one of them, "Friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Didn't you agree with me on a denarius? Take what's yours and go. I want to give this last man the same as you. Don't I have a right to do what I want with what is mine? Are you jealous because I am generous? So the last will be first and the first will be last." Okay, so now obviously we're looking at this and we're seeing a different, he being the landowner, he being God. And when he says, "Hey, friend," right? Um, you might as well be saying, "Dude," or "Hey, guy, listen." He's kind of addressing their discomfort. He's addressing their belly aching. He's addressing their anger, their frustration, right? He's addressing them. He doesn't call them by name, and he doesn't have to. He could be talking to you and me as well. Sometimes we get above our station as well in life, do we not? And look at what he's saying. I am doing you no wrong. So if the landowner, God, agreed for these people to work in his vineyard, Israel, and they have an agreed price, and I accept that, I have no reason to complain. So if I go to my job and I'm working at my job and I agree to stay there for a set salary, and then someone else has a salary and it's more than mine, do I have a reason to be upset? Well, you could probably say, well, I probably, I have more experience or I may have more education, whatever the case may be. But the bottom line is, I agreed to this salary. I agreed to work here for this. And if I don't like it, I can leave. So, there's some personal responsibility here. And what the landowner is telling him is, I'm doing you no wrong. He hasn't done anything wrong with him because they agreed to a set price and they agreed to work it. Now, whether or not someone comes in after him, these people, and work later, that's between the landowner and those people. Because the people that work there all day, they agreed to one denarius. So it wasn't by hour, it was by day, a day's work. So didn't you agree with me? He's asked him, "Hey, didn't you agree to this contract? Did you not have this understanding? We agreed to this amount." Well, yeah, you did. Okay, we got no reason to argue. So they really had no reason to confront the landowner. And he tells them, didn't we agree to this? We did agree. They'll take what's yours and go, is what he's telling them. So if he wants to give the same amount to a person that comes in at 3 o'clock or a person that comes in at 5 o'clock, that's the landowner's decision. It's not theirs to make. It's his to make because he's the landowner. Now, how do we look at this and say, how do we apply this in our lives? Well, what immediately jumps out to me, of course, this is grace. This is speaks on obviously speaks on a higher level. So if I'm sitting here and if I'm I'm a Christian over 30 plus years, right? And so I get to heaven and I see the treasures I have. And let's say they're the same as the person that was saved a year before Jesus came. Do I have a reason to complain? I don't, right? Because the time I had is not the same as the time of someone else, but the rewards are the same. So, but again, in order for me to get to heaven, that is solely on God's grace. I have no right, I have no reason to approach God to ask anything of Him. I am a sinful person. I'm a broken person. We all are. Who are we to go to God and demand anything? He is the one that has offered salvation. He is the one that has His grace, His love, and His mercy is the reason why He made a way for you and I to be saved. Let's call it what it is. His Son died on the cross for you and me. And that sacrifice will one day put us in the presence of God, the landowner. So who are we to complain about what's rightfully His? God is just in not offering us anything. We are deserving of the punishment as who we are. We are sinful creatures. We are objects of wrath. Let's be honest with it, okay? So whatever God decides to do with us, He is just in doing that. But I really take comfort in the fact that I know Jesus is going to be standing there saying, "Hey God, that one's mine. It's okay. He's with me." Man, I love thinking about that. I love thinking that. And it's a very awesome concept. So when we look at this parable, that's what we got to keep in mind. I'm not worried about the treasures I've built up in heaven. As far as I'm concerned, if I have a tent outside the pearly gates, I'm in a far better position than I would be if I was in the complete absence of God in hell. And so I'm just thrilled and I take great comfort that I will be in the presence of God and I'll have spent eternity with my Creator. That is, to me, is overwhelming and that's grace personified, right? I got no reason to ask for more. I got no reason to complain. So again, my time on earth, if there's a person that does more with less time, hey, so be it. The biggest part should always be the increase of God's kingdom. And this is not a competition, right? This is solely because God has empowered us with the Spirit and He has emboldened us and motivated us to share His word with others. We should all feel that way, that we need to share Christ with others. Okay? If you don't feel that motivation, you need to question why, to be honest with you. So this is a very good sermon, parable. Please read over this and bring your thoughts to this. I'll dig into some of the commentaries. I'm going to bring in some stuff to go along with this that I won't put in the video so we can have something to discuss on Sunday. But as always, read some of the stuff, dig into this and find out life application. How does this talk to you? How does God's word move you in this moment? All right, looking at the last question. What does a parable teach us about comparing ourselves to others? Yeah, what does this parable teach about? We shouldn't. That's what it's teaching, right? We shouldn't be worried about those people who come on to labor for God later on in life or later on in the day, so to speak, in the age. The fact of the matter is, the owner, God, saw that his vineyard, Israel, which you can apply that to the world, saw that work needed to be done. So even though I was there working all day, if I'm one of those called in the morning, work still needed to be done. There was so much work that needed to be done. There wasn't enough workers, right? We've heard that before, right? The harvest is ripe and the workers are few. And that's where we get that from. So if I'm one of those people at 9 o'clock in the morning that come along and he pulls me from the marketplace and puts me in his field and I get all the work done, then this is a different parable, but it's not. And I would dare say that this was for one day, and there's still more work that needs to be done. But this is more of a heavenly meaning. And for you and me, there's plenty of work for us to do in our community, in our church, and in our global connection. We've got plenty of work to do, and we don't need to pass that off on anybody else. We need to take control of that, roll up our sleeves, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, and get the work done and tell people about Jesus Christ. Tell people about the good news. All right, summarize. We can trust God to always do what is right. Yes, that's the whole point of what we're doing here, is it not? We trust him. He's the one that provides salvation. He's the one that provides mercy, forgiveness, all these things. He's the one that provides the Holy Spirit that leads and guides us and comforts us. We need to trust in him. We should be thankful God gives us more than what we deserve. Yes, that is true. I tell people all the time, they ask me how I'm doing. I tell them I'm better than I deserve. That is something Dave Ramsey always says, but I've kind of adopted some of that because it really makes sense. I don't deserve sometimes the blessings that I have. And I'm really thankful for God for I got a great Christian family. I got a great Christian church. I got people who love me, pray for me. Man, it's awesome. I don't deserve any of that, but hey, I do. We should never cease to be amazed by God's grace. Amen. Right? There are times in my life I am overwhelmed with God's grace. As long as I've been a Christian, there are still days that I'm just in total wonder and I'm speechless of what God does for me in my family, in my church. It happens so often, and it's so wonderful. And I pray that you have those moments as well. We should never go through life just going through routine. We should never come to church just because it's routine. Come to church because God's calling you to church and do something wonderful. And when you come in here to worship, or you go to any church to worship, go in there with the full intent of having a God-like experience, because I guarantee you that's what he's waiting to give you. So, very important. As always, thank you very much. I appreciate you dialing in. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel. That way, every time a video is made, you'll be notified when those videos post. We put videos like this on there, plus we put the sermons. And right now, Brother Richie is going through a lot of good stuff, and it is very encouraging. I'd encourage you all to look at those and watch those if you're not here for those services. We'd love to have you here at Webb Baptist. We meet on Wednesday nights for our dinner, and then we do our Bible studies, and we get with our groups. There's somewhere here for every age, so bring your family for some good food and some good fellowship. Sunday mornings we meet in our Sunday school connect groups after a brief breakfast together and fellowship, and we get together and we go over this lesson. And from there we go into the worship hour. We'd love to have you here as our special guests. If you cannot make it to Webb Baptist, you know what I'm going to say. Get plugged in, get involved in a Bible-based church wherever you're at. I guarantee you God has something special for you. You're not going to have the same experience at home as you will when you gather together with God's people. God wants his people together to worship. Find that church God is calling you to. Get plugged in and see what God's going to use you for and how that church will be a blessing to you and you be a blessing to others. Because I guarantee you, God is waiting on you to make that move. And when you do, man, it's going to be awesome. I guarantee you. Okay? Until next time, take care and God bless.